is more to Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel, because this time with season 2, we are introducing a new partnership, and I could not be more humbled and more excited by it. We started working on this last year, and it really came together rather quickly. Joining us in studio is the Public Historian African American History Initiative, Cicely Hunter with the Missouri Historical Society. Welcome in. Long time coming.
Yes, thank you so much, Carol, for having me and for this partnership with the Missouri Historical Society.
So my idea was just like in this noggin that the reason the podcast exists is that we look back at history. And one of the core questions I was asking in season 1 was, how did we get here? And you can't understand here, because here's now, unless you know there.
Right.
And there and then, that was history. So, of course, I thought of the Missouri Historical Society, the Missouri History Museum, and wondered, can we create a partnership where you come on the show on a regular basis and give us some history, some Black history about St. Louis? And you look around the studio, and some of these photos are from you guys, and it's all about history. So we decided to come together, and I just had the idea. They have all the history. They have all of the work. And so history is important to me. It's interesting. It's who we are, but I don't think we know it enough. We don't know who we are as a people, I believe. Why is history just so important in our lives?
I think the very basis of what you speak of during season 1, the fact that history is vital for our understanding of who we are as a people, the grounds in which we walk on, and how we live our daily life, and even train the new generation that's to come in our present. Those are just a couple of reasons why I decided to continue to pursue history. I didn't honestly know that this course of work was something that at the moment I could do, but it just kind of happened. And to see how history every day plays out is so fascinating. And I think the things that happen historically have deep roots and ties to our current moment and will continue to impact the future.
And that's why understanding it is so vital. And you talk about your work, you're getting your PhD. So what did lead you to this field, this career path as a public historian?
Black history is just that simple. Black history and understanding who I am, understanding my family line, and the ways in which, some of the folks that I revered, my maternal grandmother, she was, I'm so sorry. Let me think.
She was amazing.
She was incredible. But the fact that she and my grandfather, and I even was raised around my great grandmother as well. So to be able to see the ties of connections to Arkansas, where my family lived, and to be able to know the impact of the Great Migration and how it impacted my family to be able to move to Wisconsin and what that looked like. But also just school. Like I literally wanted to keep doing more and more digging. And that's what inspired me and what led me to pursue history and to now go to St. Louis University and to be in the American Studies Department studying very much Black history focused content.
So, Cicely, what we're going to do, and you guys, what we're going to do, and you're going to love it, I promise you, is you're going to come join us on the show every other week and bring us some St. Louis Black history, right?
Yes.
And so we're going to start with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who came to St. Louis to speak.
So we all know that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was memorable and shared compelling orations, but he actually came to St. Louis and shared his message with 2,000 people. And so Martin Luther King, just to give a little context, I think it's important for us to understand at that moment what he was living in the midst of, and then coming to St. Louis and how that could have affected the people here who was hearing his message. So Martin Luther King rose to prominence and is celebrated as a Black activist during the Civil Rights Movement, we know, and he was a staunch advocate for nonviolent direct action. But just a month before arriving to St. Louis in 1960, Dr. King was among a list of activists who were actually arrested for picketing and participating in sit-ins that took place in Atlanta, Georgia. So of the 52 people who were arrested, 14 activists, including King, was actually jailed. And eventually they were released on bail. And so, as president of the Southern Leadership Conference and one of many civil rights activists and leaders who was attracting a following, he generated, of course, we know, enemies, right? And so on Sunday of November 27th, 1960, during the 33rd season of the Liberal Forum of the Jewish Community Centers Association, Dr. Martin Luther King spoke at 8:30 p.m., and his speech was on the future of integration at the United Hebrew Congregation Temple. Just to give a little bit of context, the initial location was supposed to be at the Jewish Community Centers Association Auditorium. But because they wanted to make sure that they can accommodate the large number of people that would come out to see him, they decided to move it to United Hebrew Temple, which proved to actually be able to accommodate that crowd of 2,000 people. And so one person actually provides an account of what took place. And he says in the quote, "The place was packed, jam-packed, and his speech was mesmerizing." So that just kind of gives you a sense of what was the average person in St. Louis, what were they able to experience during this particular moment in 1960? The Liberal Forum was known as the Institute of the United States that brought the national speakers across the nation here to St. Louis. King kicked off the series during the calendar year of 1960 and 1961, and there were also 4 other distinguished speakers at that time. King's speech was open to the public, and a person who might have been coming could have actually saw Martin Luther King for $1.25. Can you imagine?
Not at all.
And a student could actually see Dr. King for 75 cents. So just to think about the number acquainted with seeing this person speak of such great caliber that we know of and that we love and revere today is so incredible. Newspapers provided coverage about the report that took place and also said that from King's perspective during that moment, he said, "The United States is standing on the threshold of the most creative period in the development of the race relations." He spoke frankly about the tactics of the Ku Klux Klan and White Citizens Council by saying that they do not stop with legal tactics, and the forces of defiance present certain barriers. Though he believed that desegregation was an achievable goal, but through nonviolence. Rabbi Jerome Grauman shared his recollections of Dr. King's visit at the United Hebrew Temple. Grauman stated that Martin was so weary that evening and that there were so many places that he was unwelcome, even in danger. And the rabbi also goes on to account for what took place that evening, and he says, "I invited him into my study at the temple and gave him some hot tea. It was a cold November night, and led him to my big leather armchair. I think he dozed off for a few minutes, and he came out of the room refreshed and ready to meet the 2,000 people that had gathered to hear his message of brotherhood." And so today, in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King and that particular moment in history that is tied to St. Louis's history, St. Louis's Black history, there is a plaque in the reading room at the Missouri Historical Society's Library and Research Center.
Man, I think a lot of people are stuck on 75 cents. That
Yes.
it costs that. And 2,000 people gathering today is still a good thing. If you had an event, you got 2,000 people, that's a great thing.
Yes.
The 2,000 then was an incredible turnout.
Certainly.
And I often wondered, and I know people wonder, did King ever come to St. Louis? Because he didn't come often.
Yes, he certainly did come, and even on a couple other occasions. But that one in particular ties to the St. Louis, Missouri Historical Society and what we try to do to continue to commemorate his honor and everything that he's all about and the ties to civil rights history.
Civil rights history and thought leaders then and now.
Yes.
Then and now. Cicely, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Cicely's going to come back in 2 weeks, and the next time you see her, we'll be talking about Black newspapers.
Yes.
which we have discussed on this very program with the editor of the St. Louis American newspaper. That'll be a part of that conversation, the St. Louis American newspaper.
Oh, man, that's incredible. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Cicely Hunter is the public historian of African American history with the Missouri Historical Society. We are so grateful for this new partnership. So every other week on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel, you will get some St. Louis Black history from the best place to get it, and that is the Missouri Historical Society. Cicely, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel.